The Krex Dominion fleet drifted in the void, broken and beaten. Admiral Ta watched from the bridge of his crippled flagship as the Sci-Fi Imperium vessels surrounded the remnants of his once proud armée. After a decade of bitter conflict, the war was finally over. The Krex, despite their technological prowess and tactical brilliance, had been overwhelmed by sheer Sci-Fi numbers. Commander Jun approached his admiral. "They're requesting our unconditional surrender, sir. All channels. Their supreme commander promises mercy." The last word came out bitter and disbelieving. Everyone on the bridge knew what severe mercy entailed. Forced labor on harsh planets, the stripping of Krex worlds for resources, and the slow death of their civilization. Their people would become nothing more than slaves. Admiral Tay's four-fingered hands gripped the command rail tightly. His ship, the Steadfast Will, had once been the pride of the Krex fleet. Now its hull was breached in 17 places, engines running on emergency power, and most weapon systems offline. Around him, the bridge crew waited in tense silence. They had fought well, but it hadn't been enough. "How many of our ships can still fight?" Tai asked quietly. Commander Jun consulted his terminal. "Perhaps 12, Admiral, but they are all badly damaged. And the civilian evacuation transports. Most escaped through the jump points before the Sci-Fi closed them. But those still in the system," Jun's voice trailed off. There was no need to state the obvious. The evacuation ships still in the system would soon be captured, their passengers taken for whatever purpose the Sci-Fi decided. The main screen showed the Sci-Fi fleet in perfect formation. Their ships were less advanced than Krex vessels, but there were so many of them. For every ship the Krex destroyed, the Sci-Fi seemed to have 3 more waiting. "Sir," Communications Officer Han said, her voice strained. "They're demanding an answer within the next 5 minutes, or they will open fire on the remaining civilian ships." Tai closed his eyes briefly. Their resistance had been brave but futile. The Sci-Fi had superior numbers and controlled the jump points out of the system. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. "Prepare to broadcast our surrender," he said finally, the words feeling like ash in his mouth. The bridge fell silent. This was the end of everything they had fought for, everything they had sacrificed to protect. The Krex Dominion, spanning 12 star systems, home to billions, would now fall under the cruel rule of the Sci-Fi Imperium. "Sir," the sensor operator's voice cut through the heavy silence. "I'm detecting an unusual energy signature at the edge of the system." Tai turned sharply. "Sci-Fi reinforcements." "No, sir. The energy pattern doesn't match anything in our database. It's unlike anything I've ever seen." A low hum began to build throughout the ship as the sensors registered the growing anomaly. On the main view screen, a point of light appeared at the edge of the system, growing rapidly into a swirling vortex of blue-white energy. "All ships are detecting it now," Commander Jun reported, checking incoming transmissions. "Even the Sci-Fi fleet has broken formation to respond." The vortex expanded, stabilized, and then something emerged. It was a ship, but unlike any vessel Tai had ever seen. Its design was angular and practical, with none of the sweeping curves of Krex ships or the spiked aggression of Sci-Fi craft. It was smaller than the capital ships of either fleet, perhaps only a third the size of the Steadfast Will, but something about it radiated power. "Sir, they're broadcasting," Communications Officer Han said, her voice filled with disbelief. "In perfect Krex standard." "Put it through," Tai ordered. A calm, confident voice filled the bridge. "This is the UES, Defiant of the United Earth Fleet. We notice you are having some trouble. Mind if we even the odds?" "Earth," Commander Jun whispered. "I've never heard of such a world." The Defiant moved with surprising speed, positioning itself between the Krex fleet and the advancing Sci-Fi ships. Its hull gleamed dully in the light of the distant sun, and what appeared to be weapon ports were clearly visible along its sides. "They're being hailed by the Sci-Fi flagship," Han reported. The Supreme Commander is ordering them to withdraw from Sci-Fi territory immediately. Todd watched, fascinated, as the unknown ship held its position. What was this Earth? And why would they intervene in a war that was already lost? "The new vessel is scanning both fleets," reported the sensor officer. "Detailed scans, sir. They're mapping our damaged systems, weapons capabilities, crew complement, everything." On the screen, several Sci-Fi cruisers broke formation, moving to surround the intruder. It was standard Sci-Fi procedure. They never negotiated from a position of equality if they could help it. "Sir, the Earth ship is transmitting again, on all frequencies. They want both sides to hear." The same calm voice filled the bridge again. "Sci-Fi vessels, please maintain your distance. We're here on a diplomatic mission, and would prefer to avoid conflict. However, we will defend ourselves if necessary." The Sci-Fi response was immediate and predictable. 3 of their light attack craft surged forward, weapon systems powering up. What happened next left everyone on the Krex bridge speechless. The Defiant fired what appeared to be a series of small, precisely targeted energy pulses. Each struck a Sci-Fi ship with surgical precision, disabling engines and weapons without causing catastrophic damage. The attack craft drifted, powerless but intact. "That's impossible," Commander June breathed. "Their targeting systems, the precision." Even more shocking was the speed. The entire exchange had taken less than 5 seconds. "We are now receiving a direct transmission to our ship," Han said. "Private channel." Todd straightened his uniform as best he could. "Put it through." The view screen shifted to show the interior of the Earth vessel's bridge. It was clean, efficient, and staffed by beings that looked surprisingly similar to the Krex themselves, though their skin lacked scales and they had more hair on their heads. A figure in the center seat nodded respectfully. "Admiral Tay, I presume." "I'm Captain Song of the United Earth Fleet. I apologize for arriving unannounced, but our intelligence suggested we might be needed here." Tug found his voice. "Your assistance is appreciated, Captain Song, but I'm afraid you've arrived too late. Our fleet is defeated, and the Sci-Fi force still vastly outnumbers us both." Captain Song smiled slightly. "Numbers aren't everything, Admiral. We've been observing this conflict for some time, and we believe the Krex Dominion deserves the chance to maintain its independence." "The Sci-Fi fleet is moving to attack position," Jun warned, looking at his tactical display. "They'll target your ship first," Ta told the Earth captain. "You should withdraw while you can." Song's expression remained confident. "That won't be necessary. In fact, I'd like to propose something that might surprise you. We'd like to negotiate a ceasefire between your peoples." Tai couldn't help the bitter laugh that escaped him. "The Sci-Fi don't negotiate unless they're winning." "Then perhaps we need to adjust their perspective on who's winning," Song replied. "Admiral, I'm sending you some tactical data. I suggest you prepare what functional weapons you have left. Things are about to get interesting." The transmission ended, and almost immediately tactical information began flowing to the Krex battle computers. The data showed weaknesses in Sci-Fi ships that the Krex had never identified, optimal firing solutions, and suggestions for regrouping their damaged fleet. "Sir," the weapons officer called out, "these targeting parameters, they would allow us to disable the Sci-Fi vessels without destroying them." Commander June studied the incoming data with wide eyes. "This technology, it's beyond anything we've seen." On the main screen, the Defiant began to move, accelerating toward the Sci-Fi fleet with surprising speed. The massive enemy formation, dozens of ships strong, oriented toward the single challenger. Admiral Ta stood straighter, feeling something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. "All ships," he commanded, "implement the targeting data from the Earth vessel. Prepare to engage on my mark." As the Sci-Fi fleet opened fire on the Defiant, Ta watched in amazement as the smaller ship moved with impossible agility, energy weapons lancing out with precision to disable rather than destroy. The battle wasn't over after all. It was just beginning. Captain Yun stood on the bridge of the Defiant, calmly assessing the tactical display. Earth had been observing this conflict from afar for years, gathering intelligence, learning the languages of both sides. "They're hailing us, Captain," Lieutenant Kang reported. On screen, Yun replied, straightening her uniform jacket. The Sci-Fi Supreme Commander appeared on the main view screen. His reptilian features were set in what humans had learned was an expression of outrage. The translator rendered his hissing speech into clear words. "Unknown vessel, this conflict does not concern you. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed." Yun smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. "I'm afraid I can't do that. We've studied your war, and we've concluded that the galaxy would be better off if the Kreks remained independent. You have no authority here." The Sci-Fi commander snarled. "One ship against our fleet is suicide." "Perhaps," Yun agreed, "but you might want to reconsider your position." She nodded to her tactical officer. "Commander Min, show them what we can do. Target the lead destroyer's weapon systems only." "Targeting, Captain," Min replied, his fingers dancing across the control panel. The Defiant's weapon systems came online, revealing technology neither the Kreks nor Sci-Fi had ever encountered: graviton beams that ignored conventional shields and quantum torpedoes that phased through matter before detonation. A single pulse of blue-white energy leaped from the Defiant's forward array. It passed directly through the Sci-Fi vessel's shields as if they weren't there, striking with pinpoint accuracy. The destroyer's weapon ports went dark immediately. "Their flagship is powering weapons," Lieutenant Kang reported. "Let them fire," Yun said calmly. "Everyone needs a good demonstration." The Sci-Fi flagship launched a volley of energy torpedoes. Under normal circumstances, even one such weapon could cripple a vessel of the Defiant's size. The bridge crew watched without flinching as the torpedoes approached. Commander Min pressed a single control, and a shimmering field surrounded the Defiant. The torpedoes struck the field and simply vanished. "Phase shift defense screen functioning at optimal levels," reported Ensign Du from the engineering station. "Power consumption minimal." The Sci-Fi commander's face showed clear shock. "What are you?" "We are humans," Captain Yun replied. "From Earth. And we'd like to talk." She turned to her first officer. "Commander Hua, what's the status of the Kreks fleet?" Hua consulted her display. "Admiral Tai is implementing our tactical suggestions. His vessels are repositioning now." Yun nodded approvingly. "Open a channel to both fleets." The communications officer's hands moved over his console. "Channel open, Captain. This is Captain Yun of the UES Defiant. We are here to facilitate peace negotiations between the Sci-Fi Imperium and the Kreks Dominion. We suggest a temporary ceasefire while terms are discussed." The Sci-Fi commander's response was immediate. "We do not negotiate with defeated enemies. The Kreks forces will surrender unconditionally or be destroyed." Captain Yun sighed. "I was hoping for a more diplomatic approach." She turned to her tactical officer. "Commander Min, disable the weapon systems on their 3 lead capital ships. Ensign Du, prepare a data packet for transmission to the Kreks fleet." Min's fingers flew over his console. 3 precise beams of energy lanced out from the Defiant, each finding its target with unerring accuracy. The massive Sci-Fi warships suddenly found themselves without offensive capabilities. "Data packet ready for transmission," Ensign Du reported. "Send it," Yun ordered. "Lieutenant Kang, keep the channel to both fleets open." On the tactical display, the remaining Kreks vessels began to move with new purpose, implementing the battle strategies provided by the Defiant. Despite their damaged state, they positioned themselves with newfound confidence. "Admiral Tai is acknowledging receipt of our tactical data," Hua reported. "His forces are ready to engage on our mark." The Sci-Fi commander's face reappeared on the view screen, rage evident in his features. "You dare to interfere in a concluded conflict. The full might of the Sci-Fi Imperium will descend upon your world." Captain Yun remained unruffled. Supreme Commander, you misunderstand the situation. We're not here to fight your war. We're here to end it. She touched a control on her chair, and the main view screen changed to show a galactic map. Dozens of points of light appeared, each representing a human vessel. This is the current deployment of Earth's deep space fleet. We have been observing your conflict, and many others, for years. We have stayed hidden until now, because we prefer not to interfere in the natural development of interstellar civilizations. The Sci-Fi commander studied the map, his expression suspicious. If you have such power, why reveal yourselves for the sake of the Krex? Captain Ewan leaned forward slightly. Because there are threats in this galaxy that neither of you are aware of yet. Threats that will require cooperation to face. Captain, interrupted Lieutenant Kang. The Krex Admiral is hailing us. Split screen, Ewan ordered. Admiral Tai appeared alongside the Sci-Fi commander. He looked exhausted but determined. Captain Ewan, my fleet reports that your tactical data is valid. We are in position. Thank you, Admiral, Ewan replied. Supreme Commander, she continued, addressing the Sci-Fi leader. You have two choices. You can agree to ceasefire talks, or you can witness what happens when human technology is combined with Krex tactical experience. The Supreme Commander's eyes narrowed. You would not dare to attack the full Sci-Fi fleet. Even with your advanced weapons, you are outnumbered 50-1. Ewan's expression remained calm, but her voice took on a harder edge. You've seen what one human chip can do. Are you willing to risk your entire fleet to find out what else we're capable of? A tense silence filled the bridge as they waited for the Sci-Fi response. Captain Ewan could see her crew maintaining their positions with professional discipline, but she knew they understood the stakes. If the Sci-Fi called their bluff and attacked with their full force, the Defiant would be in real danger despite their technological advantage. Finally, the Sci-Fi commander spoke. I will consult with the Imperial Council. You have 1 hour before we resume hostilities. His image disappeared from the screen, leaving only Admiral Ta. He's withdrawing to save face, Ewan said to the Krex leader. But it's a start. Admiral Ta looked bewildered. Why would you do this for us? What does Earth gain? Captain Ewan gestured, and Commander Hua stepped forward with a datapad. We're transmitting information that explains our presence. In short, Admiral, we need allies. Strong, independent allies. Against what? Tai asked. Something worse than the Sci-Fi, Ewan replied. We'll explain everything once we've secured the ceasefire. After the transmission ended, Captain Ewan turned to her bridge crew. Well done, everyone. Maintain battle stations, but stand down to yellow alert. Lieutenant Kang approached her chair. Captain, do you think they'll agree to talks? Ewan looked at the tactical display, where the Sci-Fi fleet was regrouping at a safe distance. They'll agree. The Supreme Commander is proud, but he's not stupid. He saw what our weapons can do. And if they don't agree? Asked Commander Min. Captain Ewan's expression grew serious. Then we implement Contingency Plan Theta and hope the rest of the fleet arrives in time. Commander Hua joined them. The Krex ships are holding position. Their admiral has requested permission to send a delegation to our vessel. Granted, Ewan replied. Prepare the conference room and notify security to expect guests. She stood up from her chair. The hard part begins now. Fighting is simple compared to making peace. As the bridge crew returned to their duties, Captain Ewan gazed at the view screen where both fleets were visible. The Krex vessels, damaged but still proud, and the Sci-Fi ships, numerous and threatening. Between them, the Defiant, small but powerful. It was a precarious balance, but it was a start. And if Earth's intelligence was correct, they would need both civilizations intact for what was coming. The hour of consideration the Sci-Fi Supreme Commander had requested passed quickly. The Defiant maintained its position between the two fleets, systems at ready but weapons powered down in a show of good faith. They're moving, Lieutenant Kang announced, eyes fixed on his display. Multiple Sci-Fi vessels breaking formation. Captain Yun stood up from her command chair. Tactical assessment. Commander Min studied his screens. Attack pattern. They're trying to surround us while keeping a strike force aimed at the remaining Krek ships. So they've made their choice, Yun said quietly. Signal the Krek's fleet to implement defensive pattern Alpha. Shields to maximum. Weapons hot but hold fire until my command. The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency. The Defiant hummed as its systems shifted from standby to combat readiness. Incoming transmission from the Sci-Fi flagship, reported Lieutenant Kang. On screen, Yun ordered. The Supreme Commander's face appeared, his expression cold. Your interference is unacceptable. The Kreks have lost this war. Their surrender is inevitable. Leave now, or be destroyed with them. Captain Yun didn't bother to respond. She simply nodded to Commander Min, who cut the transmission. They've launched fighters, Hua reported. 50. No, 70 craft. Main fleet vessels powering weapons. Begin evasive pattern Ta, Yun commanded. Target the fighter squadrons first, then the capital ship's weapon systems. Minimal casualties, maximum effectiveness. The battle that followed would be studied in military academies across a dozen species for centuries. The Defiant moved with impossible agility for a vessel its size, weaving through the Sci-Fi formation like a needle through fabric. The first wave of Sci-Fi fighters approached, energy weapons blazing. The shots dissipated harmlessly against the Defiant's advanced shielding. The human vessel responded with short, precise pulses that disabled the fighters' propulsion systems without breaching their hulls. 17 fighters disabled, Min reported. No casualties detected. Good, Yun replied. Continue the pattern. Lieutenant Kang informed the Krek's vessels to hold position. We'll handle this. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Ta watched in awe as the human warship executed maneuvers his best pilots couldn't have managed. The Defiant spun and darted between much larger Sci-Fi vessels, each movement timed perfectly to avoid concentrated fire while positioning for its next attack. Incredible, whispered Commander Jun beside him. Their inertial control must be far beyond anything we've achieved. What impressed Ta most was the precision. Every shot from the Defiant targeted non-critical systems, weapons, engines, sensors, but never life support or hull integrity. The human ship was systematically removing the Sci-Fi fleet's ability to fight without taking lives. They're not fighting to win, he realized aloud. They're fighting to demonstrate. The Sci-Fi fleet commanders seemed unable to adapt to the Defiant's tactics. Their formations, designed to counter conventional attacks, left them vulnerable to the human vessel's unconventional approach. 3 massive battlecruisers found themselves suddenly powerless, their weapon systems offline, as the Defiant darted past them in a blur of movement. The Sci-Fi are trying to regroup, reported Ta's tactical officer. They're pulling their disabled vessels back and tightening formation around the flagship. On the Defiant's bridge, Captain Yun studied the shifting battlefield with calm concentration. They're learning, she noted. Good. Commander Min, Phase 2. Phase 2, Min responded, entering commands into his console. The Defiant suddenly accelerated to an impossible speed, shooting straight up relative to the plane of battle, then diving down directly toward the center of the Sci-Fi formation. The maneuver was so unexpected that the Sci-Fi gunners couldn't track the vessel effectively. Quantum torpedoes armed, Min announced. Targeting complete. Fire, Yun ordered. 4 small projectiles launched from the Defiant, each heading toward a different sector of the Sci-Fi fleet. The torpedoes passed through shields and even solid matter without interaction until they reached their designated coordinates. Then they detonated. But these weren't conventional explosions. Instead, each torpedo created a localized disruption field that temporarily disabled all electronic systems within its radius. Dozens of Sci-Fi ships suddenly found themselves powerless, drifting in space. Effect confirmed, Min reported. 47 vessels temporarily disabled. Systems should restore in approximately 20 minutes. Yun nodded. Enough time to make our point. Position us near the Sci-Fi flagship. The Defiant moved to a position directly facing the Supreme Commander's vessel, which remained operational but isolated as many of its escort ships drifted powerless around it. "They're hailing us," Kang said. "Put them through," Yun replied. The Supreme Commander appeared on screen again. His earlier confidence was gone, replaced by carefully controlled anger and something new: respect. "What do you want?" he asked simply. Captain Yun's response was direct: "Peace talks. Immediately, with fair terms for both sides." The Supreme Commander was silent for a moment, his alien eyes studying the human captain. "You could have destroyed us." "That was never our intention," Yun replied. "War should be the last resort, not the first choice. Why should the Sci-Fi Imperium negotiate when we were on the verge of victory?" Yun gestured toward the view screen, which now showed the disabled Sci-Fi fleet. "I believe the situation has changed, but more importantly, both your civilizations face a greater threat than each other. We can provide evidence of this during the negotiations." After 20 minutes of battle, half the Sci-Fi fleet hung dead in space. Not a single Krex vessel had been further damaged. The balance of power had shifted dramatically. The Supreme Commander conferred with advisors off-screen, then turned back to face Captain Yun. "We will send representatives. Where do you propose these talks take place?" "Aboard the Defiant," Yun replied. "Neutral ground. Both delegations will have equal status." "Agreed," the Supreme Commander said after a moment's hesitation. "We will send our diplomatic team within the hour." After the transmission ended, Admiral Ta contacted the Defiant. "Captain Yun, what you've accomplished here today, it's unprecedented. No one has ever forced the Sci-Fi to negotiate when they held the advantage." "They no longer hold the advantage, Admiral," Yun replied. "And soon you'll understand why this peace is necessary for all of us." As both fleets waited for negotiations to begin, repair crews worked on the damaged Krex vessels, while Sci-Fi ships gradually regained power. The Defiant maintained its position between them, a small but powerful guardian of the fragile ceasefire. On the bridge, Captain Yun reviewed the battle data with her officers. "Minimal casualties, maximum effectiveness," she said with satisfaction. "Exactly as planned." "The Sci-Fi will not forget this defeat easily," Commander Hui observed. "Their military has never experienced such a thing." "It wasn't a defeat," Yun corrected. "It was a lesson. And hopefully they're ready to learn from it." Lieutenant Kang approached with a datapad. "Captain, we've prepared the conference room. Security protocols are in place, and Ambassador Seo has arrived from his quarters." Yun nodded. "Good. It's time to explain to both sides why we intervened." She stood and straightened her uniform. "The real work begins now." As the captain headed toward the conference room, the tactical display continued to show the remarkable aftermath of the battle. A Sci-Fi fleet, previously unstoppable, now partially disabled. A Krex force, previously defeated, now granted a second chance, and a single human vessel that had changed everything. What had seemed impossible just hours before was now reality. The path to peace had been opened, not through destruction, but through demonstration of power used with restraint and purpose. On the neutral ground of the Defiant's conference room, representatives from both species gathered uneasily. The Krex delegation, led by Admiral Tai himself, entered first. Their scales showed signs of battle, some bandaged, others bearing fresh scars. They took their places on one side of the large oval table, postures tense but eyes bright with desperate hope. Minutes later, the Sci-Fi representatives arrived. Their delegation was headed by Sub-Commander Rock, the Supreme Commander's most trusted advisor. His face remained impassive, but the rapid movements of his inner eyelids betrayed his barely contained fury. His team took positions opposite the Krex, deliberately avoiding eye contact with their enemies. Captain Yun stood at the head of the table, flanked by Ambassador Jin and Commander Hua. The room was simple but impressive: clean lines, soft lighting, and walls of a material neither species recognized. "Welcome," Yun began. Thank you for agreeing to these talks. We understand the difficulty this presents for both sides. Sub-Commander Rock spoke immediately. Let us dispense with pleasantries. Your ship has interfered in a legitimate military action. The Sci-Fi Imperium demands an explanation before any negotiations. Admiral Tay's aide whispered something in his ear, but the Admiral silenced him with a small gesture. For once, I agree with the Sci-Fi. Why has Earth involved itself in our conflict? Ambassador Jin stepped forward. He was older than the other humans, with gray at his temples and lines around his eyes that spoke of both wisdom and weariness. Before I answer that question, I would like to outline proposed terms for a peace agreement between your peoples. He activated a data pad, and holographic text appeared in the air before each delegate, displaying in both Krex and Sci-Fi script. These are our suggestions, Jin continued. Please review them carefully. The room fell silent as both delegations read. The terms laid out were extensive but clear. A demilitarized zone between Krex and Sci-Fi territories, monitored by automated beacons. Trade agreements that leverage the strengths of both civilizations, and most significantly, a mutual defense pact. This is absurd, one of the Sci-Fi delegates finally said. We were winning this war. Why would we accept equal terms? Because they're not just equal, Admiral Ta said slowly, looking up from the document. They're fair, genuinely fair. He turned to Jin with confusion in his eyes. There's nothing here that favors either side. You've accounted for resource needs, cultural differences, even historical grievances. Jin nodded. That was our intention. But why? Asked the Sci-Fi representative, echoing Admiral Tay's thoughts. Why interfere in our affairs at all? What does Earth gain from this? Captain Yun stepped forward. That is the question we need to address now. She touched a control on the conference table, and the room darkened slightly. What I'm about to show you is information that Earth has gathered over the past 15 years of covered observation in this sector of the galaxy. A holographic star map appeared above the table, showing a vast section of the galaxy. Dozens of points of light pulsed in different colors. These are all active conflicts happening right now, Yun explained. Border disputes, resource wars, ideological battles. Some have been going on for decades. Others are just beginning. She touched another control, and patterns began to emerge, subtle connections between seemingly unrelated conflicts. At first, we thought these were normal growing pains of young spacefaring civilizations, but then we noticed patterns. Behind many of these conflicts is a species you haven't met yet. Yun's voice grew serious. They're called the Harvesters. A hologram shifted to show an alien vessel unlike anything the Krex or Sci-Fi had seen before. It was massive, with an organic appearance despite clearly being mechanical. The ship seemed designed to inspire dread, with appendages that resembled claws or tentacles extending from its main body. We've only managed to capture this imagery at extreme range, Yun continued. They maintain their distance, observing but rarely engaging directly. Who are they? Admiral Tai asked, unable to hide his unease. Ambassador Jin took over the briefing. Based on archaeological evidence and fragmented records from extinct civilizations, we believe they are an ancient species that evolved billions of years ago. They don't conquer in the traditional sense. Instead, they harvest. Harvest what? Demanded Sub-Commander Rock. Resources, technology, genetic material, knowledge. Jin's voice was grim. They cultivate wars between younger civilizations, sometimes manipulating conflicts from behind the scenes, other times simply waiting until the combatants have weakened each other sufficiently. The hologram showed a series of star systems. In each, the image played out the same way: civilizations at war, then the arrival of harvester ships, followed by the systematic stripping of planets and the disappearance of both warring parties. They wait until you're vulnerable, Hui added. Until your fleets are damaged, your defenses stretched thin, your resources depleted by war. Then they strike. A heavy silence fell over the room as both delegations absorbed this information. If they're so powerful, one of the Krex delegates finally asked, why haven't they harvested Earth? They don't know about us yet, Yun replied. Or at least, we don't think they do. Humanity developed interstellar travel relatively recently, and we've been extremely cautious in our exploration. We maintain stealth technology on all our vessels and observe from a distance. Until now, Rock noted pointedly. Until now, Yun agreed, because we recognized that the situation had become critical. Our intelligence suggests that Harvester scout ships have been observed at the edges of both your territories. This news sent a ripple of concern through both delegations. How do we know this isn't a fabrication? Rock challenged. A clever ploy to manipulate our peoples. Admiral Ta had been quiet, studying the holographic data. Now he looked up. The weapons signatures, he said slowly. Show me the weapons signatures from the Harvester vessels. Captain Yun nodded to Commander Hua, who adjusted the display. Energy patterns from Harvester weapons fire appeared. 3 cycles ago, Ta continued, we lost an outpost on the edge of our territory. The damage patterns were unlike anything we'd seen before. We assumed it was a new Sci-Fi weapon. Rock's inner eyelids flickered rapidly. We lost 2 patrol vessels in that same sector. The energy signatures matched these records. Ambassador Jin nodded grimly. They're already probing your defenses, testing your responses. If your war had continued, they would have waited until both sides were sufficiently weakened, then struck. And now? Asked Ta. Now we have a chance, Jin replied. Not just to prevent your mutual destruction, but to form an alliance strong enough to resist the Harvesters when they come. He gestured to the peace proposal still hovering before them. This isn't just about ending your war. It's about survival. Yours, ours, and potentially dozens of other civilizations in this sector. Sub-Commander Rock studied the humans carefully. You could have simply warned us. Would you have believed us? Yun asked. Without the demonstration of our technology, without proof that we have the capability to observe these patterns across the galaxy. Rock didn't answer, but his silence was confirmation enough. We need allies, Ambassador Jin concluded. Strong ones, not conquered worlds or bitter enemies, but true allies who will stand with us when they come. Because they will come. Admiral Ta looked across the table at his longtime enemies. It seems we have a common threat greater than each other. Rock met his gaze steadily. So it would appear. The peace terms, Jin said quietly. They're not just fair because we're benevolent. They're designed to create the strongest possible alliance between your peoples. The Krex excel at advanced technology and theoretical physics. The Sci-Fi are unmatched in resource management and military strategy. Together, with Earth's assistance, you would be formidable. Captain Yun stepped forward again. We're not asking for an immediate decision. Review the terms. Consult with your leaders. But know this, the clock is ticking. Our intelligence suggests the Harvesters will make their move within the next 6 months. By then, we need to be ready. The room fell silent again, as both delegations considered the implications. Years of hatred and war weighed against an existential threat neither had imagined possible. Finally, Admiral Ta spoke. I will recommend these terms to the Dominion Council, with some minor adjustments. All eyes turned to Sub-Commander Rock. After a long moment, he nodded once. I will present this evidence to the Supreme Commander. If it is verified, I believe the Imperium will see the wisdom in cooperation. The first step toward alliance had been taken. 3 months later, a ceremony took place on a space station orbiting a neutral world. The station itself was a marvel of engineering, built in record time through the combined efforts of Krex designers, Sci-Fi construction teams, and human technology. It hung in space like a shining beacon, visible from the surface of the planet below. Inside the station's grand hall, leaders from all 3 species gathered. The tension that had marked their early interactions had faded, replaced by cautious optimism. Representatives from a dozen other civilizations were present as observers, drawn by rumors of the unprecedented alliance forming in this sector. Supreme Commander Nar of the Sci-Fi Imperium stood tall and proud in ceremonial armor. Beside him, High Chancellor Tai of the Krex Dominion wore the traditional robes of his office. Ambassador Jin represented Earth, his simple black uniform standing in stark contrast to the elaborate dress of the others. "Today marks a new beginning," Jin said, addressing the assembled dignitaries. "Not just for our three peoples, but potentially for all life in this galaxy." On a raised platform in the center of the hall sat a single document, the Tri-Species Defense Accord. Its terms had been negotiated, argued over, and refined for 3 intense months. Now it was ready. High Chancellor Ta stepped forward first. "The Krex Dominion joins this alliance freely. Where once we saw only enemies, we now recognize potential friends." He pressed his palm to the document, and it glowed briefly, recording his genetic signature. Supreme Commander Nar followed. "The Sci-Fi Imperium pledges its strength to this cause. We will turn the skills that made us conquerors to the defense of all." His palm print joined Ta's on the document. Ambassador Jin completed the ceremony. "Earth offers its knowledge and technology in service of this alliance. Together, we will face what none of us could face alone." With the third signature, the document pulsed with light, and copies were instantly transmitted to governments and news networks across all 3 civilizations. The Tri-Species Defense Accord was now official, creating the foundation for what would eventually become the Galactic Cooperative. After the formal ceremony, the leaders moved to a reception area with views of the planet below. Military officers, scientists, and diplomats from all 3 species mingled, some awkwardly, others with growing ease. Captain Yun, now wearing formal dress uniform with new insignia marking her role as defense coordinator, approached High Chancellor Tai and Supreme Commander Nar, who were engaged in quiet conversation. "The hard part comes next," she said, joining them at the viewport. "Building trust after so much bloodshed won't be easy." High Chancellor Tai nodded thoughtfully. 3 months ago, I would have said it was impossible. Now, he gestured to the room, where Krex scientists were enthusiastically discussing shield harmonics with Sci-Fi engineers. I begin to see possibilities. My military commanders remain skeptical, admitted Supreme Commander Nar. But they cannot argue with the evidence your people have provided about the harvesters, nor can they deny the effectiveness of the joint defense systems we've already implemented. He turned to study Captain Yun with curious eyes. I still don't fully understand how this happened. How did one ship change everything? Yun hesitated, then answered honestly. The Defiant wasn't alone. We have a fleet of them, but we didn't want to arrive as conquerors or saviors, just as a reminder of what's possible when we choose cooperation over conquest. A small demonstration rather than an overwhelming show of force, Nar observed. Interesting strategy. Sometimes the lightest touch creates the greatest impact, Yun replied. High Chancellor Ta gestured toward another part of the reception, where Krex and Sci-Fi military officers were comparing battle scars and war stories. Our peoples fought for so long. It will take time to heal those wounds. Time we may not have, Captain Yun said quietly. As if in response to her words, alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. The festive atmosphere evaporated instantly as security personnel moved to protect the gathered leaders. Commander Hua rushed to Yun's side, datapad in hand. Long-range sensors have detected multiple unknown signatures matching harvester patterns at the edge of the sector. The information appeared on screens around the reception hall. 7 massive vessels, each matching the distinctive design of harvester ships, had appeared at the outer boundary of charted space. The 3 leaders looked at each other, ancient enemies, and new allies facing a common threat. It seems, said High Chancellor Te, that your timing was impeccable, Captain. Yun nodded grimly. Humanity has a talent for arriving exactly when needed. Let's show them what we can accomplish together. Within minutes, the reception hall had transformed into an impromptu command center. Military leaders from all three species gathered around tactical displays, scientists analyzed incoming sensor data, and communication officers maintained links with their respective fleets. "The defense network is activating," reported a CREX officer. "All early warning beacons are transmitting data. Sci-Fi battle groups in sectors 3 through 7 are moving to intercept positions," added a Sci-Fi commander. Captain Eun studied the tactical display with Supreme Commander Nar and High Chancellor Ta. "They're earlier than we anticipated," she said. "Our intelligence suggested we had more time." "Perhaps they detected our alliance," suggested High Chancellor Ta. "If they prey on conflict, our cooperation would threaten their strategy." Supreme Commander Nar nodded in agreement. "They're testing our response. These 7 ships are likely just a scouting force." Captain Eun touched her communication device. "Defiant, this is Eun. Status report." Commander Min's voice came through clearly. "All Earth vessels are at battle stations, Captain. The Defiant and Intrepid are closest to the incursion point. We can be there in 20 minutes at maximum speed. Coordinate with the Sci-Fi and CREX forces in that sector," Eun ordered. "Remember, this is our first joint operation. Let's make it count." She turned to the 2 leaders beside her. "We've prepared for this. The combined defensive network, the shared tactical systems, the upgraded weapons. We're ready." High Chancellor Tai looked uncertain. 3 months is not much time to build an effective alliance. "It will have to be enough," Supreme Commander Nar said firmly. "My fleet commanders report all vessels are moving to assigned positions. The defense grid is fully operational." On the main display, they could see the harvester vessels advancing slowly into the sector. Their movements were deliberate, almost cautious. "They're scanning us," reported a human science officer. "Heavy data collection across all spectrums." "Let them look," Captain Eun said. "Let them see exactly what they're facing." The tactical display updated to show the position of Alliance vessels. CREX ships with their advanced sensor arrays formed the outer perimeter. Sci-Fi battle cruisers, now equipped with modified human weapons technology, formed a solid defensive line. And moving rapidly to intercept were the Earth vessels, smaller but devastating in their capabilities. "They're accelerating," called out a Sci-Fi tactical officer. "Energy signatures indicate weapons charging." High Chancellor Ta straightened his robes. "I should be with my people. My flagship is standing by." "As is mine," agreed Supreme Commander Nar. "This battle should be led from the front." Captain Eun nodded. "I'll join you aboard the Defiant. We'll coordinate the joint fleet from there." As they prepared to depart for their respective vessels, the 3 leaders paused for a moment. Looking at the tactical display were 3 different colored symbols, representing CREX, Sci-Fi, and human ships, moved together in perfect coordination. 3 months ago, we were ready to destroy each other, High Chancellor Tai observed quietly. "And now we fight together." Supreme Commander Nar completed the thought. Captain Eun smiled slightly. "That's how alliances begin. Not with grand ceremonies, but with shared purpose." The alarms continued to sound as they left the reception hall, but there was a new energy in the station. Not panic, but determination.